Carrie, and welcome to Homemaking on the Homestead. In today's video I am going to be making soap. I decided to try a new recipe. It only has two oils in it, coconut oil and olive oil. So far I've been really happy with the way that this turned out. The other thing that I wanted to show you, because I was so excited, I ordered some new soap molds. I haven't bought myself a new soap mold in years, and I usually make the loaf type bars or recipes. That's what I put in molds, I guess would be a better way to put that. And then I slice those into bars. And what I bought this time was these really cool soap molds. They hold 2 pounds, a 2-pound recipe of soap. Soap recipes, the weight of the soap is the oils only. So if it's something says it's a 2-pound recipe, that's the weight of your oils. What I really liked about these was the molds are lined with these silicone loaf pans, just like the type you would bake with. And I think it's important to have the firm box frame because the sides tend to give with the weight of the soap when you put it in there. So you'll want to make sure whatever you use is sturdy. So you can use silicone, you could use muffin pans, you could use really anything you want for a soap mold. But because I like the little bars and slicing it into the little bars, I tend to go with this. Plus it's kind of easy, quick, and I'm not filling up individual bars, but everybody has their own way of doing it. So I was really happy. The order I had came with 2 of these, so on an ambitious day I could be doing 2 batches of soap at the same time. The other thing I purchased, I've been using a soap cutter that I bought online years ago. I haven't actually, let me grab it, I haven't actually seen one like this. Maybe I haven't looked hard enough, I don't know. It's got a piece of piano wire in here, and I just run the whole loaf through that, and it's served me well, but I wanted to try something different. But what I ended up buying was this nifty box, and as you can see, there's lines in here, and it comes with a ridge type soap cutter and one that is just straight. So basically you lay your soap in here and then you just use the lines to put your cutter down into. You get nice even bars of soap every time that you cut. Both of these items I've been really happy with, and I could easily recommend them. So if you're trying to get into soap making, you know, and you don't know where to start or what to get, I have a bunch of links below in the description box for the molds, the cutters, the lye, the oils. Biggest thing is that you can make soap in anything. You could put it in a cardboard box. So if you're just starting out and you don't feel like you want to invest a whole lot, then don't feel like you have to. Like I said, you could put it in a loaf pan, but like you would make meatloaf. If it's not silicone and the sides are stiff, you're going to need to line it with something so that you can pull the soap out easily. And quite honestly, the simplest thing that I have done is to take a plastic bag, cut it open, and just put it in there and kind of straighten it out. Yes, you'll get the little ridges on the side from the plastic, but by the time you cut the soap all up and you start using it, it really doesn't show, and it really doesn't matter. You're just making soap for your own home use, or maybe to occasionally give away for gifts. That works just fine, and I've done that for years. If you want something to purchase something, then the silicone molds are really nice because you can easily just pop out the soap, which you'll see me do in this video. The other thing that I want to share with you is that I am making soap in a crock pot. And this is called hot process soap making. There are 2 ways to make soap. One is cold process, one is hot process. In the cold process method, you only bring the soap to a certain point, and then it's very liquid, it's like pudding, and you pour that into your molds. Then you have to let it sit for a while until it finishes its chemical reaction. And then you can take it out of the mold, slice it, and then it has to cure for about 6 weeks. There's a lot of free lye still in it, and it has to finish its full process to get to the other side, and you have soap, and it's it's good to use. With hot process, you're basically cooking it all the way through to the very end. So technically when you get done, you could use it right away. However, when you're done, it's still really soft. So usually I put it in the mold. I leave it in the mold for a day or two to get nice and firm. Take it out of the mold. Sometimes I'll even let it sit for another day just so it's not sticky and it's dried out some more. Then I slice it, put it on a tray, and you could use it at that point. The main thing about soap to remember is that a hard bar of soap will last a whole lot longer. If your soap is soft, you're going to go through it much quicker. One of the most common questions that I have had is, can I change out one oil for another? And the simple answer to that is yes and no. Every oil has a different property. Every oil requires a different amount of lye. If you start changing up the oils, you'll need to go in and recalculate how much lye to put in. I have made this recipe 80% olive oil and 20% coconut oil. Coconut oil is a great oil for soap making. It makes a nice hard bar of soap. It gives you suds, which is why I added it. You can make soap with all olive oil, but again, you'd have to go back and recalculate how much lye you put in it. I added the little bit of coconut oil to give it those other properties. I was also looking for a way to make a simple bar of soap, a batch of soap for somebody who's a beginner. And it's all done by weight, not by measuring cups. You know, you don't put in 1 cup of oil, you put in your oil by weight. So you will need a scale. You can buy scales, fairly inexpensive, postal type scales, or I bought an inexpensive little postal scale when I first started making soap. You know, trying to keep the amount of initial cost down because I didn't know whether it was something that I was going to continue to do. And it was something that I really enjoyed doing, and for years I sold it online, and so I upgraded to a better quality scale. The weight of an oil and the measurement of an oil can be different, and therefore it would affect the amount of lye that you have in the recipe. The best thing to do is to follow somebody's recipe. When you are starting out, you can follow my recipe. You can find one online and use my process for doing it. You may want more detail, and if that's the case, please check out my other video. I'll link it up here someplace, or I'll have it in the description, or both. If you have any questions, let me know, and in the meantime, let's go make some soap. The first thing we do is gather our ingredients together and set the crock pot on low. The first oil that I am measuring out is the coconut oil, and I had it in a kind of a cold place, so it was a little hard to get it measured out. Then it is time to put that into our crock pot. We want that to melt completely. The next oil that I measured out was the olive oil. And once it's measured out, we're just going to set it aside. It's not time to add it into the crock pot yet. Now we're going to measure the lye. Make sure that you're wearing gloves. And I got a little too much in there, so I had to kind of back it out a bit. And we're going to measure the water. It's good to get all these things done ahead of time. Finally, the last thing is the fragrance oil, and you'll need 1 ounce for a recipe this size. Once the coconut oil has completely melted, now you can add the olive oil. I put the lid back on and let that just warm up for a few minutes. I don't worry about temperature with hot processing soap. While that's warming up, it's time to mix the lye into the water. Make sure you have an open window, a fan going. It does put off fumes, and the lye will get very hot. And again, make sure you wear gloves and stir. Now it's time to just stir that lye and the water together. And do it carefully. I obviously speeded this up, but you don't want it to splatter. Once it has cleared, and it's not cloudy anymore, then it's time to add it into your oils. I give it a little bit of a stir, but then I switch over to my stick blender, immersion blender. You can do it by hand, but it takes a very long time to get it to a nice thick consistency. This speeds up the process a lot. You're looking for a consistency of pudding, gravy, something similar to that. If you were doing cold processing soap, that would be called trace. Once the soap has reached that consistency, you put the lid back on, and in about 10-15 minutes, you take the lid off and stir. And you can see it's gotten much thicker now. Give it a good stir, put the lid back on, and then we check again in about 10-15 minutes. Now we're even thicker. We've gone from gravy-like to the mashed potato look. And again, the lid goes back on and we let it keep cooking. From the beginning to the end, the process takes about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the recipe. This stage, it's getting closer now. It's much thicker. Now when I stir it, it's quite thick, and you can see some streaks of shiny, looking kind of like Vaseline type of a look. That's how I know I'm almost there. I let that cook for a few more minutes, and now it's even more so, has the kind of a Vaseline consistency and a waxy type look to it. Now we're pretty much done at this point. Like I said, that was about 45 minutes or so to get there. And I'm going to turn my crock pot off and remove the liner and give it another stir. Soap making's a lot about stirring. The last thing that we need to do for this recipe is to add our scent oil. And you want to make sure when you add it that you stir it in very well. You don't want any little pockets of scent oil that didn't get mixed in well. So give it a good stir until it's all evenly distributed. And now it's time to fill the mold. And as you can see, it's quite thick looking compared to when we started. And I just kind of spread it out and fill it and keep doing that. I take a spatula towards the end and kind of smooth it out on top and push it into the corners. I also tap it on the surface to get out any bubbles, air pockets. And I put a little bit of plastic over the top just so I could smooth it out a little easier because it is quite hot at this point. I got busy, so it was another 2 days before I removed it from the mold. I really was happy with these silicone molds. That I couldn't believe how easy it was to just take it off. And the mold just pops back into shape. It's very nice. I let it sit for another 24 hours and then I cut it. I used the ripple edge cutter, which I thought made some really pretty bars of soap. It was just very smooth and easy to do using this cutter. When I got to the very end, the last bar was a little bit on the thicker side, so I just kind of put it between two of the cutting lines, and I eyed it, and the bars were just a little bit thinner than the other ones, but it worked out fine, and in the end I had 11 bars of soap. Thank you for watching my video, and I hope you found it helpful. I hope you learned something, and I hope you give soap making a try. It's a very rewarding hobby to have. It's very useful. It makes great soap for your family. It makes great gifts for friends. And you can play around with all different kinds of scents. And you can add coloring. As you see, I don't add coloring to my soap typically, but you could add coloring. You can do whatever you want. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of room for creativity with it. So I hope that you found this to be helpful to get you going on making soap if you've never done it before. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, would you consider subscribing if you enjoy my content? That means a whole lot to me. And each and every one of you that come and watch my channel, I really appreciate you, and I thank you very much for that. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.